Hi, Minnesota Bound podcast listeners. I'm Realtor Heather Womack. As a young girl, I grew up in a duck blind hunting with my dad. I spent winters skiing at Highland Hills and Afton Alps and enjoyed summers hiking in all our beautiful parks. I grew up in Minnesota, moved to Europe for work, and returned to raise a family. Now my kids love the outdoor activities we have here. As a realtor, I've helped hundreds of folks buy their first home, sell the home they have, purchase a lake cabin, or start investing in Minnesota real estate. If you love adventure but need some new scenery, call me. My website is heatherwomackrealty.com. That's Heather Womack, WOMACK, realty.com.
Well, it's funny. The last podcast I was talking about, I started with the sound of drips. Drip, drip. The sound of maple sap going into tin buckets in the sugar shack. And again today, we are starting with drips. We just had our most recent of snowstorms in Minnesota, and drip, drip, drip. The snow is already melting because spring is here. And for me, there are a couple of things that signal spring. Turkey hunting, fishing opener, and my annual trip to Canada. And this darn COVID stuff is screwing around with all three yet. Hey there, Bill Sherck, the man about the woods. Welcome to the Minnesota Bound podcast. The stories behind the stories, presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems. My family uses Connecticut, and yours should too. Also Star Bank, the bank we use at Minnesota Bound. The Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, and the Minnesota Propane Association. Finally, Caldwell banker realtor Heather Womack. Okay, we get to fishing opener. Rules with resorts and cabins are a little screwy. Social distancing with friends, all of that. I can deal with that. I can work around that. But the one thing I'm having trouble with is trying to get into Canada. Every May, my family and I travel north of the border to see our good friends, Harald and Ann, Eric and Allison Lohn at Cabilo Lodge. Last year, we got stumped. COVID had us all shut down, and the border was shut down. This year, things seem to be loosening. Still no border, which has a lot of people wondering what in the world is going on. And outside of Mr. Trudeau, there's somebody I'd prefer to talk to on the topic, and his name is Harald Lohn. Harald, good morning.
Good morning, Bill, and your listening audience. Thank you for the invite.
Normally, you'd be getting ready to pack your bags to go off to a little snowed-over gate at the front of Cabilo to just have some time to yourself before things get hopping at the lodge, but
you got
that may
right,
not happen again.
We're just kind of holding our own right now in a state of suspended animation, just like everybody else that heads north.
Well, that's it. From what I understand, the numbers are like 98% of anglers and adventurers who hit Northwest Ontario and the remote lakes come from the United States. A lot from Minnesota,
Correct.
Wisconsin, Illinois, Nebraska, across the board. They come. That business, that economy is supported by U.S. travelers. Last year, you guys went without a thing. And now there are two sides. You've got a business to run, and you've got all these anglers in the U.S. who are trying to figure out what in the world is going on.
Well, as you would expect, we're doing what's called a balancing act. We're trying to, of course, get information about the standing at the border, the U.S.-Canadian border, number one, on both sides, the U.S. side as well as the Canadian side. We need clarification there. Up to this moment, and as of yesterday, there was no clarification other than the fact that that border will remain closed for non-essential travel until April 21st. So that's one piece of information we expected. They've been leapfrogging
and
every 30 days.
April 21st isn't some magical date. Um,
The trigger for all of this, of course, harkens back to March 21st of 2019. So every 30 days, they've basically said, close it for another 30 days, another 30 days, another 30 days. So we're at the anniversary right now, Bill, of 1 year for the closure of the border between the U.S. and Canada. So it isn't magic. It's just based on 30-day increments, bottom line. So that's one issue that we try to clarify. And as you'd mentioned on the onset, we have no more clarity on that than anybody else. Officials on both sides of the border, and I'm talking about politicians as well as government officials, are providing absolutely no clarity when the border will open. Needless to say, that's increased the frustration for businesses and families and people on both sides of the border.
no doubt.
So we understand. So it's just a public relations nightmare for number one, and number two, of course, the upset to the economies. I can't tell you what that's done other than begin to wipe out certain businesses.
So let's back up just a little bit. When this COVID thing hit our continent, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, was pretty candid in saying he wanted to protect the health of all Canadians. The border was shut down. Fair statement?
Clear statement. Still his standing, and that's correct.
And it's almost as if business and economy come second to health.
That would be correct.
I understand both sides of that debate, I think. Right? I think if you're an open person and you can step back and think about both sides, I get it. But the other thing that's been discussed a lot is if you look at Canada and the borders, as you get further east over into Buffalo, that area, Niagara, like there are a lot of people passing through every hour, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then you move to the west and you get over towards Thunder Bay, and it's almost like part of the country stops there, almost like Northwest Ontario has been forgotten, right? There's logging. There is tourism, mainly in the form of fish camps. But the government has been a little bit blind to your economy. At least that's my sense. Why is that? I don't get it.
Well, if you reflect just a moment on the tack that the U.S. has taken with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic, as it were, Canada as a country has virtually adopted the same model. So it's been an all or nothing kind of thing. It's only been probably with, obviously at the onset, they realize not everybody's equal or everything's equal. Nevertheless, at the onset, they've made blanket statements regarding behavior, gatherings, da-da-da-da-da, similar to what we did in the United States. Most importantly, again, to emphasize, and as you mentioned, Canada looks to the safety and health of their people as their number one priority, and I applaud that. The economy becomes secondary to the health and safety of the citizenry. At some point, however, the citizens are deemed to be safe and healthy. When that would be occurring, I can't tell you. Just like we don't know in the United States when this is going to be over. So we're now in the process, at least in Canada, of regionalizing a open borders concept, as it were, where it will roll out differently in differential parts of the provinces as well as the country of Canada. So they're taking measured steps to address the issues. For those of us in business that particularly operate in extremely remote areas, we have a tough time with that. We have just by the mere fact being at our lodge, you're social distancing from everybody everywhere. You don't
On
have
the
to worry
planet.
about, yeah, exactly. You don't have to worry about 6 feet, 6 inches. It's more like 600 yards. You got your own boat, your own lake. But anyway, so they've recognized the differential nature of the COVID itself, their strategies they're taking to adapt to them, etc. So, Bill, I can't give you a definitive answer about the border when. There is some strong thinking about, I'll call it midsummer, whatever midsummer would mean to you or me, I can't tell you. And that's as best as I know, frankly.
I didn't do a good enough job of painting the picture. Your family runs a fly-out fish camp. You're based on Confederation Lake, about an hour drive north and east of Ear Falls, Ontario. You're out in the bush at the end of a logging road, or along a logging road, I should say. And you've got these lakes that you fly people out to. Just one of the most remote, wonderful experiences on the planet. And you're not alone. There are other people in the province who either offer fly-out camps, drive-in camps, boat-in fishing camps, but it is a key part of the economy in that part of Ontario. I just can't imagine the impact this is going to have on those camps. Like 15 or 1,600 family-run lodges, resorts, and fish camps, right?
Correct. Bill, you're talking about an industry. I'm just talking the province of Ontario now, where there's at least 1,500 tourism operations. Most of us are considered to be small mom and pop operations, which is our livelihood. We don't do other things other than take care of our guests, as it were, in a seasonal basis. We also generate approximately $40 to $45 billion in revenue.
Billion.
Just in the province. Billions with a B. And we employ somewhere in the neighborhood of between 35 and 40,000 people every economy.
And you've made a good point in the past. That is fresh money. That is not money that is already circulating within Canada's economy. That is new money coming in every year.
Yes. Yep.
And why is that important?
Well, as you just indicated, it's not money that's being recirculated in the country or the province of Ontario, as it turns out. So you're taking, in our case, US dollars, bringing them in from Minnesota or whatever, and depositing those and spending that money in Ontario at Kabila Lodge. We, in turn, use those dollars to hire Canadians for our staff, buy supplies, food, equipment, maintenance, you name it. All those dollars are spent in Ontario, Canada. Money that they would not have had, they're not getting right now because we can't get there. You can't come up and give me money, and I can't go buy groceries at the local store. So we're all hurting in that regard, Bill. All of us.
Last year, the numbers were scary. You didn't think, or the tourism boards had discussed and said, like half of those 1,500 operations probably would not be able to open this year because they had no operating capital from 2020 because they were shut down all year due to COVID. If the border does not open and those places cannot open this year, that number has got to escalate. And for some of those families, eventually you run out of borrowed time. Some of these operations are going to shut down permanent.
Yes, we have a tourism organization based in Toronto that does a survey on a monthly basis across the country as well as the province of Ontario. And as you suggested earlier, the numbers of the people that may not, of course, they weren't operating last year, They were down. That's 50%, not even operating. Just forget it. The doors were closed. They had zero revenue. Of the 50% that were, quote, operating, which would mean you were taking care of workers because you couldn't have guests, those was minimal revenue, as it turns out. So that's the snapshot that you had then. Fast forward to 2020, those that wanted to try to stay around had to go borrow money just to live over the course of the winter. That money that you borrow has an interest rate that's payable back to the bank or whatever the lending agency is. If you can't open in 2021, those that did operate marginally, if they can continue in 2022, they're going to be in debt up to their ears because they had to borrow more money to survive and they had no revenue. So we're talking about lots of sinking ships.
Government programs to help?
Oh, yes. Okay. There is a laundry list of places. I shouldn't even say a laundry list, a short laundry list of places where you can inquire regarding funding. As in any situation where you're looking for dollars for loans, there are stipulations. One of them was, how much did you make last year? And they say, I had no revenue. Well, in that case, how can you pay us back next year? So it's tough to get funding, number one. Number two,
I just want to thank
the strict regulations regarding the loan requirements bring some other organizations to their knees, Bill. They just can't do it. They can't, even the minimal. The industry has looked for grants. And by that, I mean you would get a funding amount that would be forgivable. That has not been at the forefront of any discussions that I've been involved with over the past 12 months. I can assure you of that.
Well, it's going to have to be. All right. I'm going to ask you to get out your crystal ball in just a second because I know it's a good one. But first, we're going to pay just a couple of bills here. Harald Lohn is my guest, proprietor of Cabilo Lodge up in Ontario, Canada. It's a tradition. The Shercks twice a year, we travel to see Harald and his family and fish at Harald's remote lakes. And we're talking about the Canadian border shutdown. Thanks to all the sponsors, though, that make the Minnesota Bound podcast happen. The stories behind the stories. Up first, Connecticut water, which, Harald, might be good for your camp. You know, the Sherck family loves Connecticut water. No secret there. We live out in the country and we have that ironclad, stinky well water. But we treat all of our water with Connecticut's whole home water treatment system. We also have the K5 drinking water system. All the white buildup around the faucets is gone. Katie loves what the water does for both her hair and her skin. And you know what? Our boys don't go for sodas. They like to drink water in the house before football practices, before soccer and hockey. They always fill up the water bottles with Connecticut. Get rid of that well water taste and that foul smell and call Connecticut like the Shercks did and look forward to clean, safe water. Also, we'd like to thank the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources,
the Minnesota DNR, and as we know, Minnesota's wildlife management area are a vast array of lands across all of Minnesota, and there are approximately 1,400 wildlife management areas that are valued for wildlife in Minnesota's outdoor recreation opportunities. So speaking of recreation, to find out more about Minnesota's wildlife management areas, you can go to mndnr.gov/WMAS.
Okay, back to today's story, and it is not my favorite tale. Harald Lohn, owner of Cabilo Lodge, and I are talking about the Canadian border closure. This time of year, there are thousands upon thousands of Minnesota anglers who start looking forward to their spring trips up to Canada to fish. And at this point, it looks like Don't even bother thinking about that. All right, Harold, I've known you for many, many years, which is a good thing, by the way. Um, and you've always had this crystal ball. When I show up, you say, go fish here. I go fish there. I catch fish. You say, nope, go fish over here. So I go fish over here and I catch fish. You have a crystal ball. And while I'm being a little bit facetious, what do you see as you look into your crystal ball with the border? You must see something on the horizon.
Bill, what an excellent question. And like all persons that own a crystal ball and gaze into it on a regular basis, I've done a lot of that over the past 15 months.
Sure.
Here's my quick take. It's quick and it's dirty, believe me. Number one, the scuttlebutt, quote unquote, scuttlebutt. That's because that comes from a crystal ball, is talking possibly July of 2020, possibly at
2021.
With 21. And that's with major reservations. How we arrive at that is because of the pressure that is now being imposed on, frankly, the world. And U.S. and Canada are part of that. The G7 countries are pretty much opening their borders. Canada is one of the few countries of the G7 that are standing back a little bit. So we're seeing some pressure out there. The automotive industry, particularly on the border states, Michigan and Ontario, they're having trouble getting parts on both directions. They're creating some real havoc. You have people that own property in Canada, Ontario, out of northern New York and Michigan and Minnesota and Wisconsin. It goes on and on. These people have families on the other side of the border. Lots of pressure there. So we have an extensive about pressure to get that border open. So I say July with a caveat. And here are the caveats, Bill. Number one is we have no idea what the protocols are going to be. Are you going to have to quarantine for 14 days if you could cross the border? Do you have to have a plan when you hit that border, when you go across the border? Will you have enough supplies, sanitary supplies as well as food supplies and water supplies to quarantine for 14 days? And it goes on. Those are all unclear. So if somebody told me it was July 15th today, I got a lot of work to do between now and then. Getting my lodge ready, sanitation equipment, gloves, hand washing, da-da-da-da-da-da. So and again, let me just emphasize, that's a real tentative based upon my crystal ball reading. Gut feeling, I think you may want to look a little further down in the summer.
I read a very intriguing CBC article this week on the automotive industry. There are lots of part manufacturers in Canada. And it sounds to me like this divide, this closure is not just hurting their business, but killing it.
Yes.
Like it's done. They can't get a border open. They can't get stuff across. They can't get supplies. And it is having quite the negative impact on Canada's automotive manufacturing industry.
Correct.
I would think Trudeau and those folks would start listening to some of those pleas for help. Maybe those voices are bigger than yours. I don't know.
Well, I think you're exactly right, Bill. The proximity to Toronto and Ottawa is critical. That's where the population lives, as it were. 50% of Canada lives in that area over there. Once you get outside of the what's called the Golden Horseshoe area and start moving west, there's very few people. I mean, we don't have any big cities around us at all. The town where we're at, Ear Falls, is probably close to what I think at most 2,000, maybe a little less, a little more. So you're destroying lives, you're destroying businesses, you're destroying families, and I think you're destroying the economy, quite honestly. I think they have to have an awakening, that balancing between the public health and safety versus the health and safety of the economy for the Canadian people, for the Canadian economy. Something's going to start shaking in the next, I believe, 30 days. I don't know what it's going to be. It's going to be pointed. It's going to be direct. We hopefully will have some major clarifying decisions out of all that. But Bill, for you and me and your listeners, we have to hold our breath and see what's going to come down the pipeline.
Yeah, well, I'm going to cross my fingers too, for sure. Harald Lohn is my guest. You are listening to the Minnesota Bound podcast, The Stories Behind the Stories, brought to you today by the Minnesota Propane Association.
Hey, I'm Laura Sherck, and did you know, according to the Environmental Protection Agency Energy Star program, that propane is almost 3 times more efficient than grid electricity? We all care about our planet, so let's use energy efficiently to reduce our environmental footprint. You can heat your homes, your water, your cabins, your businesses with propane. The right energy right now. Propane, clean American energy. For more information, go to propane.com.
The Minnesota Bound podcast is also supported by Star Bank.
Hi there, Ron Shera here for Star Bank. If you're putting your money into mega banks down the street, who knows where that money's being used? Bank locally. Keep your money local with a community bank that actually cares about you, your family, your business, and your goals. Check out the bank we use at Minnesota Bound. Try Minnesota's own Star Bank. You can find them online at starbank.net. When you call Star Bank, you actually hear a real living person answering the phone. Star Bank has 10 convenient locations around Minnesota to serve you and all the mobile banking products that you need to manage your money. Check out all that Star Bank has to offer at starbank.net.
All right, we're talking about this darn border closure. You have had an unbelievable run in Ontario since you took over the camp decades ago. 40, how many years? 42?
Well, my wife and I and family, we bought it and began operating in 1983. So we've been there for a while.
Yeah. And here we go. I'm going to open up a can. Things have gone quite smoothly throughout the years, considering you obviously have never experienced anything like this. You have so many people who, number one, support the Lohn family, but number two, support your business, your fishing and adventure camp. They're all wondering, how are you guys doing? Are your chins up? Are you thinking, my God, this is the end? Like, where are your heads at?
Well, just reflecting a little bit, Bill, since we've been in business, now it's been in my family since 1972.
Right.
But since we've had it, of course, we went through 9/11. We went through those recessionary times. We've personally experienced major forest fires in our areas. We've had cabins burned down. We've had boats sink. And it goes on and on and on. But nothing has ever shut down the entire lodge for an entire year, let alone shutting down the border. So we're the Lohn family. We're realists. Some people call us old folks. We're on the cusp of retirement, I think, my wife and I particularly. I have a son, his wife, and 3 kids. They're chomping at the bit. They've been operating our lodge for several years now. They're frustrated. They're exhausted. They're mad. They're semi-depressed. Mm-hmm. And here's mom and dad behind, kind of trying to figure out where the second money tree comes from.
Sure.
Psychologically, Bill, we're doing fine. Socially, we're doing fine. We're keeping it together. We'll survive. One way or the other, we'll survive. the real question becomes, what about the business, our business in particular, and others like us in Ontario in the future? Your guess is as good as mine, buddy.
Well, first off, there are few like the Lohns. Let's just be clear there.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe you guys will survive this. But I see something will change at some point, and all of a sudden, your part of the world is overrun by people, right? You'll have all the regular guests coming back, but a good chunk of these camps are going to be shut down, whatever that number is, a third, a half, three-quarter, who knows? But
Right.
there is going to be demand and a lack of supply. I just see that. And that's a good thing, but that's a really bad thing.
Well, you've touched on one of the issues, of course, we experience here in the United States. What's that supply chain going to look like? As you say, some will close down. Let's hope we got a boom in our business. Can I get enough bread and potatoes and eggs? What about fuel for my aircraft? What about the maintenance? And it goes on and on and on. You're exactly right. There's going to be a real crunch somewhere along the line, particular business entity that we can't anticipate. We're trying to do our best to do that, believe me. But there's some things that are just by the boards that we don't know about yet. And it will be problematic.
And I just know anglers, right? When that border opens, they're going to come.
Yeah, it will.
And a lot of them, right? In a regular down year, even when the economy was suppressed, holy cow, you'd go to the border and the trucks and the boats were lined up, trying to get through. These trips are magical to families. Yes, the fishing is ridiculous, right? The fishing where you are is like it was 200 years ago, in theory, right? Go to a spot, catch a fish. Oh, it's a big fish too. That's one of the reasons people come. The lack of crowds. You're still out in the pristine wilderness, clean lakes where you can drink water right out of the lake. And yes, I said it, Ontario. You can drink water right out of many of those lakes.
Yep.
But we come for the people too. And I think if there is a lesson to be learned from COVID, it is the importance of relationships and people. We all miss that a lot. A lot.
Well, Bill, you've put your finger on what keeps families and communities and nations together. It's these personal relationships that bind us all as one entity. And in our particular business, as you've said, sure, we've got great fishing. Our customer is king as far as we're concerned. But at the same time, you're part of us. You're part of our bigger family. We're concerned about you, that you can't go to school. You can't do this. You can't come up and see us. You can't enjoy life a little bit. So we share the frustrations, believe me, on all of this stuff. And we're trying to figure out how we can adjust to that, adapt to that. But I can assure you of one thing, Bill, when that border opens and that car belts across there and drives to Kabila Lodge, we're going to be ready for you. We're going to be up there with open arms and smiles on our faces. Our planes will be ready. Our staff will be ready. You're going to be welcomed back into our family, that's for sure.
Sure can't wait to get there. Sure cannot wait to get there. And I don't think I'm alone in saying that. Harald, thanks for the time today. Fingers are crossed. Let's see what Canada does, because right now it feels like many of the decisions are in the hands of that government.
Bill, thank you very much. You're absolutely right. Let's keep our finger crossed. Hope does spring eternal. Believe me, it does. And let's look to the future, keep a positive attitude, and let's get that border open.
Enough said. It's the Minnesota Bound Podcast, the stories behind the stories, presented by Connecticut Water Treatment Systems. Clean, safe, great-tasting water. The Minnesota Propane Association. Our good friends at the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. And Star Bank, the bank we use at minnesotabound.com. And finally, Heather Womack, Caldwell Banker Realty. Harald, Lohn, thanks for the time today. We will see you soon. Until the next Minnesota Bound podcast, don't forget to introduce a kid to the great outdoors.